I'm Brooklyn. The house is quiet, the only sound being Noah's soft breathing from his room. It's a calm, peaceful moment, but my mind is flooded with the events that led me to this point of newfound freedom. Just a few days ago, I received a single text message. It's official. Trust split confirmed. No fanfare, just a simple statement of fact. But for me, it was the culmination of a long, fought battle against the suffocating control of my parents. Let me take you back to that fateful Thanksgiving. The night had started with a text at 10:13 p.m. From my father. Transfer the mortgage tomorrow. It read, a cold, demanding command, as if I were his employee rather than his daughter. 2 hours earlier, we were still at my parents' house. My mother, Regina, was smiling as she distributed dessert. Everyone got a slice of the delicious pie, except my 9-year-old son, Noah. He didn't earn it, she said smoothly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The room erupted in laughter, but Noah just stood there, his little face filled with confusion and hurt. I remembered how excited he had been to help me make cranberry sauce earlier that day. He had even written a sweet little note for Grandma Regina. But it seemed as if none of that mattered. As I watched my mother's actions, something inside me snapped. I had endured years of their controlling behavior. My father, Henry, had always run everything in the family like a business. The family trust, any financial help they offered, and even emotions were all calculated with an expectation of a return. My younger sister, Bianca, was the golden child. She never had to work for their love or approval. She always got what she wanted without a second thought. And my older brother, Ethan, had learned to stay silent, acting as a buffer between me and our parents, never really standing up for me. After my divorce a few years ago, I started visiting less frequently, hoping that distance would change things. Henry offered to help with my mortgage, saying it would be easier to fold it into the family trust. But I knew he just wanted to have control over my life and my home. I politely refused, and since then, he had treated every dime I earned as an act of defiance. This Thanksgiving was supposed to be different, a neutral ground. I had told Noah that we would just eat, smile, and leave early. But from the moment we arrived, it was clear that things were going to be the same as always. Regina kissed my cheek as if I were a stranger. She placed Noah's homemade dish behind her store. Bought one, pretending not to notice. Dinner was filled with artificial laughter and inside jokes at the expense of those not present. Henry opened a bottle of expensive wine, saying it was for those who appreciated quality, and then poured a glass for Bianca's 11-year-old daughter. Noah innocently asked why there were no mashed potatoes this year. Regina's sugary yet sharp reply was, "Some people don't need more starch." Ethan glanced at me briefly, as if he wanted to say something but didn't. I squeezed Noah's shoulder and whispered, "It's fine." But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Throughout the night, Regina found every opportunity to put me and Noah down. When Noah reached for the water pitcher, she said in a sickly, sweet voice, "Let the grown-ups handle that, okay?" Her smile never reached her eyes. Then came dessert. Noah's face lit up with excitement. Pie was his favorite, and he had spent the previous night helping me make a small version at home in anticipation of this moment. But when the tray went around the table, Bianca's daughters got generous slices first, then Bianca herself, and then Ethan's youngest. Finally, when it reached Regina again, she stopped the tray, looked at Noah, and said, "He didn't earn it after the way he acted." Noah was confused. "I'm sorry, Grandma. What did I do?" he asked. But Regina just ignored him and added more whipped cream to Bianca's daughter's plate. The room fell silent. I felt a surge of heat in my chest, but it wasn't just anger. It was clarity. Years of swallowing my pride and pretending everything was okay had come to an end. Noah whispered, "It's okay, Mom." His small yet steady voice gave me the strength I needed. I stood up slowly, the chair scraping against the polished floor. I took Noah's coat from the back of the chair, knelt down, and helped him put it on. The room watched in silence as we walked out into the cold, fresh air. The drive home was quiet, except for the sound of the wipers on the windshield. Noah sat in the back seat, clutching a handmade turkey he had made at school, the one he had wanted to show Grandma. When we got home, he asked, "Did I do something wrong?" I looked at him and said, "No, honey. You did everything right. Sometimes people act cruel when they want to feel powerful." He nodded slowly, his eyes still a bit distant. I made him hot cocoa with extra marshmallows, and he went to bed with a small smile. As I tucked him in, he whispered, "It's okay, Mom. I don't need dessert." That simple statement broke my heart more than anything my parents had said that night. Downstairs, I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the half-finished pie we had made. Then my phone buzzed with that text from Henry. It wasn't about the money, it was about control. I decided then and there that I had had enough. I opened my laptop and started to go through all my financial ties with my parents. I traced every loan, every investment, and every property connection. I opened a blank document and started writing down every instance where they had used their generosity as a means of control, every time I had sacrificed my dignity by staying silent. By the time I was done, it was past midnight. The words on the screen felt like a solid wall, unbreakable. I took a bite of the pie, not for the taste, but as a reminder of what Noah had been denied. It was my fuel. I texted Ethan, "We need to talk." He replied almost immediately, saying he'd come by in the morning. The next morning, Ethan arrived looking uncomfortable, his hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. "Mom said you overreacted," he began. I let out a short laugh. "Overreacted? She humiliated your nephew over a piece of pie." Ethan sighed. "I know. I saw it. I should have said something." I handed him my phone with a text from Henry on the screen. Ethan read it twice, his jaw tightening. "He really sent this right after dinner, 10:13? I nodded. "Down to the minute." Ethan looked up at me. "What do you want me to do?" It was the first time he had ever asked me that question. I took a deep breath and said, "I want out. Completely. From the trust, the mortgage, everything tied to them." Ethan thought for a moment and said, "It's possible, but it'll be complicated." Then he hesitated and added, "There's something else you should know. When I was refinancing my house last year, I saw the paperwork for the beach house, the one they've been bragging about as their retirement home. You co-signed part of the down payment 8 years ago, right before your divorce. They said your name would be removed later, but it still is on the papers. And they're about to lease it for the summer for $10,000 a month. They didn't tell you because they thought you wouldn't notice." I was shocked. All these years of being dismissed, and now I had something that gave me a say. "I don't want revenge," I said quietly. "I just want them out of my life." Ethan met my eyes and said, "Then let's make it legal." That afternoon, we went to see the family's long-time attorney. He greeted us politely, unaware that a storm was coming. I told him that I wanted to separate my portion of the trust and close all shared accounts with my father. Ethan stood by me, calm and supportive. The lawyer hesitated, saying my parents might not agree. I cut him off and said, "They don't get a vote." 3 days later, the calls started. 6 missed calls from Regina, 3 from Henry, and 1 voicemail. Regina's calm, rehearsed voice said, "You're sabotaging this family, Brooklyn. That boy of yours needs to learn his place. If you keep pushing, you'll regret it." I forwarded the voicemail to Ethan. His reply was simple, "We're done. Officially this time." Then came Ethan's birthday. It had always been the one family gathering that felt real, with no fancy decorations, just pizza and the kids running around having fun. But that morning, I got a tag notification on my phone. It was a photo of the beach house, all decked out with lights and banners. Regina's caption read, "Surprise party for our amazing son, the man who holds our family together." She had tagged everyone but me and Noah. I called Ethan right away. He sounded angry. "What the hell is this?" he said. "They didn't tell you?" I asked. "No," he replied flatly. "They just decided." We both agreed to go to the party. When we arrived at the beach house, the driveway was packed with cars. Music was playing softly from the patio. Inside, relatives I hadn't seen in years were holding glasses of wine. Regina was standing near the fireplace, looking like a picture of hospitality. When she saw us, her face showed a flash of shock, then panic, and finally an unnatural smile. Ethan, Brooklyn, what a surprise, she said too brightly. Ethan didn't waste any time. Why did you post the party like I planned it? He asked. Regina's hand froze in mid-gesture. It was meant to be a nice surprise, she said. No, Ethan said, his voice cutting through the room. You used me to fix your image. People started to whisper. Henry stepped forward, his jaw tight. Lower your voice, son. Ethan turned to the crowd. Everyone, this wasn't my idea. It's just another act. If you came thinking this was a real family celebration, you've been misled. The room fell silent. Regina's face turned red. She said, We were trying to make peace. I said quietly, Peace doesn't start with lies. Regina looked at me as if she didn't recognize me. You don't have to do this here, she said. Yes, I do, Ethan said. This is the only language you understand. The whispers turned into murmurs. Henry's face showed pure fury. Ethan took a deep breath and said, If you keep pretending, you'll end up celebrating alone. And with that, we walked out. The next day, I got a letter from Henry's accountant warning me about the serious tax consequences of splitting the trust, along with a note saying, Don't make emotional decisions. I laughed. It was the same manipulative tone I had heard when I was 17 and wanted to choose my own college. I sent a picture of the letter to Ethan. 5 minutes later, he called and told me to check my email. There was the finalized amendment, removing Henry and Regina from future disbursements of the trust. Sure enough, that afternoon at 4:17 p.m. there was a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw my parents standing on the sidewalk, looking like strangers. They asked if we could talk and said they would apologize to Noah. I told them that an apology wasn't a transaction. Henry got angry and asked if I thought I was better than them. I said, No, I just finally understand you. You're a lesson, not a legacy. And I closed the door. Now, as I sit on the porch with a cup of tea, looking at Noah's drawings on the fridge through the window, I realize that I've finally broken free from their control. The world they tried to shrink for me is expanding again. Dessert is just dessert, not a prize to be earned. The absence of their controlling voices is what freedom sounds like.